Hello everyone, my name is Dustin and today I will be ranking all of the elevators found throughout the Myst series. Myst is a series of adventure puzzle games that began with its eponymous title in 1993, which was the best-selling computer game for 9 years. It was followed by 4 sequels, 4 remakes, and an online MMORPG. On June 24th, Cyan Worlds, the creators of the series, will be releasing a remake to Riven, the sequel to Myst. These games are renowned for their engaging puzzles, their unique environmental storytelling, and most importantly, their elevators. Now, despite these games being beloved by millions, and elevators being a crucial gameplay mechanic throughout all of the games, for some reason I have not been able to find a thriving discourse surrounding them. Because of that, I have taken it upon myself to scrutinize all of them in bitter detail and propose my ranking. I'd like to note that this list is my opinion, so if you have your own strong opinions regarding the elevators, I would love to hear them in the comments, as long as you keep them civil. Before I start, I will be defining elevators as any device that the player can stand or sit on, and mainly goes up and down on a defined linear track, but may move laterally as well. For that reason, I will not be including trapezes, as there is no platform to stand or sit on, and I will not be including devices that raise or lower objects, as the player cannot be elevated by them. I will not be including elevators in Uru, as I have never played that game, and I am not well versed in the intricacies of its vertically moving chambers. When discussing the original game, I will be using footage from the 1999 Myst Masterpiece Edition, because that is the version I grew up on, and that is the version that I have. However, I will be including footage from the 2014 Real Myst Masterpiece Edition when discussing the elevator found in the Rime age, as that age is not found in the original game. Over the course of the series, there are 35 elevators, 7 in Myst, including the one on Rime, 6 in Riven, the sequel to Myst, 10 in Myst 3 Exile, 7 in Myst 4 Revelation, and 5 in Myst 5 End of Ages. Here's a more comprehensive breakdown by age. Without further ado, let's get into the ranking. On the very bottom floor is the steam puzzle elevator from the Voltaic Age in Myst 3 Exile. The reason it's so low is because I have a personal vendetta against this elevator. You see, the Voltaic Age is composed of puzzles in which you are trying to turn on power to devices that can then be used to power other devices, eventually culminating in the steam puzzle to power a blimp. You become accustomed to knowing that when something isn't powered on, it moves or rotates but does nothing. For instance, in this other elevator, when you pull the lever but it's not powered on, it does this. But when it is powered on, it does this. By the time you're ready to solve the steam puzzle, you have encountered 2 other levers in this age that you can power on by clicking. However, this is what happens when you click on the steam puzzle elevator, even when the elevator is powered on. You see, it turns out that unlike the other 2 elevators, which you only have to click, this elevator is different in that you have to click and drag it to one side in order to raise it. There's nothing to indicate that this lever is different from the other ones, and the fact that this lever responds when you click it as if it needs power is inconsistent game design that leads to an unclear goal. I played this game once when I was 12 and once when I was 22, and both times I wasted dozens of minutes trying to figure out how to power on the elevator, when in reality I just had to pull the lever. I actually like the steam puzzle itself. It reminds me of getting 59 volts to power on the spaceship in the first game. A potential improvement to this would be needing to pull each of the 3 levers in order to make them work, and to not have visual and audio feedback when you simply click on them. That would establish an expectation of how the game elements work, so you understand when the goal is actually reached. Good puzzles in games rely on understanding what the goal is and trying to figure out how to get there, rather than confusing mechanics that muddy the understanding of how the game actually works. I found one person on Reddit who agrees with me, so I know I'm not crazy. At number 34 is another elevator from Exile. This one is the Fulcrum puzzle platform in Amateria. I am similarly faulting puzzle design as the reason for ranking it so low. You see, the original Myst game had a central hub world and 4 other ages, or worlds that you could travel to. Once you traveled to a new age, you had to solve puzzles to find these pages and to find your way back to Myst Island, the main hub. Myst 3 Exile returned to that same formula with a hub age and 3 external ages to travel to. However, unlike the first game, you have access to a linking book to return to the hub world at any time, so if you're stuck on a puzzle in one world, you can take a break and try out one in another world. That being said, the game still sets you up to believe that everything you need to solve the puzzles in one age can be found within that age itself. In fact, between Myst 1, 3, 4, and 5, which all follow the same formula, I can think of only 2 puzzles in all of those games that require information from the hub age. This is one of those puzzles. It involves setting a counterweight and a fulcrum to match that of a ball that is rolling across a platform. The weights of the materials as well as the conversion of the fulcrum are both found in the hub world, which is generally not where you would expect to find information about the external ages. This puzzle would be equally effective if those scales were found on Amateria instead. The reason the elevator itself factors into this is because every single time you want to test the weights, you have to set the weights, go to the platform, raise the platform, run the test, then lower the platform and reset the weights if it doesn't work. This puzzle is technically possible to solve by trial and error, but the process of raising and lowering the elevator every time you want to test it just gets extremely tedious, especially if you don't know that the relevant information is on a completely different world. That being said, I really like the green tidal pools in this area of Amateria. They're very pretty and different from the water in the rest of the age. Number 33 is the pressure plate elevator in Lochion, Myst 5. Remember how I said there were only 2 puzzles in the series where you need information found outside the age to solve them? Well, this is the other one. Basically, you have to raise a counterweight, write a symbol that you found on one of Yisha's journals on the slate, leave the slate on the pressure plate, and wait for the borrow to come and stand on the plate, which raises the stone elevator. Yisha's journal is what is found on the hub world. I don't blame this one as much as the previous one because Yisha's journals are very easy to find in Kavir, and it's very obvious that you're supposed to use the symbols at some point. I mainly put this elevator so low because the slate mechanics are just so buggy. When I first tried to solve this puzzle, the slate just teleported back to the original pedestal when I put it down, and I had to go retrieve it and teleport back. Then half the time the borrow won't even recognize the symbol and the elevator goes halfway up before descending and you have to retrieve the slate and draw it again. Overall, I was not a fan of any puzzle that involved using the slate, which unfortunately is most of the puzzles in Myst 5. At number 32 is the Bubble Wand puzzle platform from Exile. This is the platform used to test another one of the 3 puzzles in Amateria. Unlike the Fulcrum puzzle I discussed 2 elevators ago, I actually really like this puzzle. It helps set the mood of the world with the vibrating sounds and the ability to walk on the tracks themselves. That being said, the reason the elevator itself is so low is that, like the Fulcrum puzzle, every time you want to test out the solution, you have to walk over to the platform, wait for it to rise, and see if it worked. This elevator is kind of far from the puzzle itself, so going over to it each time somewhat disrupts the flow of solving the puzzle. There isn't that much reason for this elevator to exist. It could easily be a staircase that you could ascend to the platform where you test the puzzle. It just includes figuring out the order of the hoops the ball travels through, so once you figure that out, you won't need to go to the elevator too many times. Next is the Golden Dome Elevator from Riven. You may be surprised to find an elevator from Riven this low, as that game is primarily remembered for its elevators. This elevator is mainly so low due to its lack of distinguishing features and the process it takes for you to get it working. Basically, once you've rotated the pentagonal room a bunch of times, you gain access to the Golden Dome, a building that has been enticing you since you first landed on Riven. However, once you've gotten to the bottom floor, you find that you can't access the elevator to get to the spinning fire dome until you raise a platform up above. In order to do that, you have to lower some stairs and actually access the dome from the other side. This involves going the long way around, which is going across Temple Island, taking the maglev to Jungle Island, getting in the minecart, taking the minecart to Crater Island, and making your way across Crater Island across the bridge that takes you to the Golden Dome. Only then you can raise the platform, which leads to a back entrance of a room you've already likely been to. The elevator itself is just a stone slab with triangular wedges that goes up and down one floor. Nothing super exciting. On top of that, the only purpose of the elevator is to get the symbol from the spinning dome. On the bright side, Riven is a game in which you simply click to go forward, so it's incredibly fast to make this journey. Though for those of you who have only ever played the game on Steam, a fun fact is that when Riven was a physical game, it was so large that the game itself was stored on 5 separate discs. Each island was on a different disc, so every time you traveled between them, you were prompted with a "Please insert disc 2." In order to get to this elevator after you've lowered the staircase, you had to swap discs 3 times. Then you'd get the information you need, raise the walkway to the marble puzzle, and take the entire journey in reverse. I originally worried that this journey would be too tedious when switching from the point-and-click movement to free movement, as they will be doing in the 2024 remake, but according to the trailer, it appears that you're able to lower the staircase from Gen's projection chair, as opposed to having to lower it from within the Golden Dome itself. That means you'll be able to go directly into the Golden Dome the first time you travel to Crater Island, and you will not have to go the long way around. At number 30 is the Leaf Elevator from Idana in Exile. This is one of only 2 elevators in the series that are plants. It's honestly a neat design. The leaf will raise when you step onto it and clasp onto a branch above. Then when you leave it, it unclasps and returns down below. It is only one directional, and there's a trapeze right next to it that will take you back down. The issue I have isn't with the elevator itself, but rather Idana as a whole. The entire age takes place in a giant tree, and all the puzzles are based around getting various plants to do things. I loved this age when I was 12. I thought the entire concept was fascinating. But since then, I've developed the opinion that it's incredibly difficult to traverse this age. The color scheme is very dark, and there are not many defining landmarks, so it's very easy to get lost, especially when you're in the lower areas. Now imagine you're aimlessly wandering around, trying to find where to solve puzzles, and then all of a sudden you accidentally step on a leaf that brings you to a higher level. It just adds to the confusion of navigating. For that reason, I'm putting this one lower on the list. Number 29 is the telescope chair from Myst 4 Revelation in Tamana. From here on out, I don't actually have any problems with the elevators. This chair is low because it's barely an elevator, but it does ascend and descend, so I included it. Basically, you pull a lever to open the viewing window. Then you can sit on it and press a button. It goes up a track, and you can look at a telescope. There's not much to it, you just press a button on the telescope which powers the crystal viewer. At the bottom, you can swivel the chair. I think I would like this contraption more if the chair rose at whatever position you rotated to, but instead when you press the button, it just automatically swivels you towards the telescope. I do like the glowing red button, and it rises at roughly a 45-degree angle, which is unique for the elevators. Next, we have the Great Shaft Elevator number 2 in Myst 5, Kavir. This elevator, like Great Shaft Elevator number 1, which I will get to shortly, is very odd in that these elevators are the only 2 instances in the entire series which switch to a third-person perspective. I assume this is because the developers wanted to show off the epic floodlights that are emitted by them. I like that the elevators are operated by a pulley handle and how large it is compared to most other elevators in the series, but that being said, they're pretty slow upon arrival. You wait for the counterweight to drop, and then the elevator comes up after a few seconds. It brings you from floor 3 to floor 2 in Kavir, which allows you to travel to a new age. At number 27, we have the Great Shaft Elevator number 1. This is exactly the same as the previous one, but it brings you from floor 4 to floor 3. The reason I ranked it higher is because it has an epic theme that plays when you ride it. Unfortunately, the elevator isn't nearly as exciting as the theme makes it out to be. And number 26 is the Hexagonal Elevator from Exile, another one from Amateria. Moving forward are all of the elevators that I really like, so it was difficult to pit them against each other. The purpose of this elevator is to see the material composition of the ball for solving the Fulcrum puzzle. As previously stated, this puzzle is negatively affected by the lack of information within the age itself. However, that does not fault the elevator. This age is partly composed of hexagonal columnar basalts, which is unique to the series, and one of my favorite geological features in the real world. The elevator smoothly fits into one of the columns as if the column itself has been removed for the sole purpose of hosting it. It's a simple wire elevator made of metal with a lever to power it and brings you between the two floors. It's the only hexagonal elevator in the series. The shape among the rocks makes it blend in so well with the environment that it almost feels as if it was not constructed, but as if it was part of the world itself, and riding it is so satisfying. Next is the Topography Elevator from Riven. This elevator has a beautiful walkway leading up to it, with greenish blue pools, jagged rocks, and a carved path. It's so memorable that it's the second image that you'll find on Google Images when you search for the game. The elevator shaft is carved into the rocks, and you can see cracks in the wall as you're ascending. The elevator itself is just a platform, so when you reach the top, you can exit on one side to learn the shapes of the islands and make them bubble, or go to the other side and view the projections of the various islands. '24th place goes to the Rail Elevator in Tamana, Myst 4. This elevator traverses 3 locations: Atris's study, the main walkway, and Atris and Catherine's bedroom. It's a sleek metal capsule with a nicely patterned door. In order to get between the main walkway and the bedroom, it descends to the water and travels along a rail, making it the only elevator in the series that travels horizontally. Its purpose is to bridge the gap between the two sides of Tamana after the bridge has been destroyed by the brothers. However, it's funnier when you imagine this elevator's purpose under normal conditions while the bridge still stood. It appears that Atris built the entire rail and designed the elevator specifically to avoid taking a 2-minute walk between his bedroom and the lab. He's clearly too busy playing with waveforms to talk to his daughter about her beetles.
I'll have to show this to Dad soon as he gets home. He loves this kind of stuff.
A little more left.
Next is the Jananan Observatory Elevator from Exile. This elevator always works, but when you first use it, a cage rotates but does nothing. When you rise, the elevator is facing the wrong way and you're unable to enter the observatory and only see Savidro pacing and thinking you're Atris.
Atris? Is that you?
The puzzle to get the elevator working is pretty simple. You can find the correct settings for the cage in Savidro's notebook. From there, you pull a mechanical age and let the elevator ascend from the outside. You can then fiddle with the settings inside the shaft. After you get it working, the cage latches onto the elevator, causing it to rotate. You're then able to enter the central observatory. You see Savidro leave to Narayan, and you gain access to the other ages. You can also lower the elevator when you're above to unlock the door and gain access to the observatory from the outside. Overall, I really like the aesthetic of the elevator. The woodwork with the metal wrapping around it is very sleek. I like the sound effects when the door is locked. The elevator is central to the functioning of the hub world of Myst 3, and it does so in style. And when I think about Myst 3, this elevator and the surrounding observatory is what comes to mind. Next we have the platform elevator in Kavir, Myst 5. It's turned on by what might be considered a puzzle, but is actually just pressing a button, then going to another room and pressing the other button. The reason this elevator is so high is because it's just so extravagant. It's the largest elevator in the entire series, basically an entire floor. As it rises, you see these 4 corkscrew columns rotating and 8 counterweights in the background lowering to accompany it. You can even enter a lower floor by pulling a mechanical and stepping off the platform when you press the button. This allows you to gain access to the 4th external age. Overall, I enjoy its grandiose nature and the various moving parts that compose it. Here's the first from the original game, the Fortress Rotation Elevator in the Mechanical Age. I will admit that this elevator, and some of the others from Myst, are so high purely due to nostalgia. This elevator is central to the puzzles of this age, as you use it to rotate the entire building in order to gain access to 2 small islands. These islands have the code that opens the chamber with the linking book back to Myst Island. There's a small puzzle in which you must first rotate the elevator so that it's facing the correct direction. Then when you enter it, you'll see 3 red buttons. One for the bottom floor, one for the top floor, and one on a timer which takes you in between the 2 floors. You can see a mechanism up on top. What you have to do is press the middle button and exit the elevator when the timer is going. Then the elevator will go halfway down the shaft while you're on the outside and you gain access to the fortress rotation mechanism. The puzzle of rotating the fortress is one you can practice on a simulation downstairs. Basically, you pull a lever to turn on the device, then pull the other to rotate the entire building. You can learn the sounds that apply to the 4 cardinal directions from the simulation, or you can be like me at 7 years of age and pull the lever a bit, go down the elevator, go around the building, and pray that you don't see an endless expanse of water outside the door. Overall, this elevator is key in a series of classic Myst puzzles, and I really like the red color scheme and the design of the upper chamber. I'm also very sentimental about the timer sound effects. Despite the frustration of the fortress rotation, this elevator provides a memorable experience that any Myst player will know well. Next is the Canyon Elevator from Voltaic in Myst 3. I'm ranking this here purely because of its aesthetic. It serves to take you between the upper layer of the canyon walkway and the lower, where you can access the blimp to finish the age. The shaft is a set of vertical metal bars with one thicker metal band spiraling around them. As you press the lever to descend, the exterior of the platform, including the lever, rotates along with the band. This leads to a unique effect in what otherwise would be a pretty basic elevator. This lever and the one further down the walkway are actually what contribute to the effect of believing that levers only need to be pressed to be activated, as I stated earlier with elevator number 35. Next is the elevator from Rime Age. I got Real Myst Masterpiece Edition for the sake of making this video, and I had never actually gone through Rime before then. I actually really like this elevator and its broader placement within the age. Rime Age is the smallest age in the series, and much of the access to different parts of it are through the elevator. It has a cool design because while it only has 2 different floors it takes you between, it can rotate when you reach the top, and then descend once more. This is a clever use of space and makes the elevator feel as if it traverses 4 different locations. First you enter through a hallway in the main building. When you first ascend, you hear the nostalgic sound effects that are found in multiple other elevators throughout the original game. Then at the top you can play around with the device, making aurora borealises of various colors. They're quite pretty. Then upon turning the elevator around with the red button, you'll find Atris's study, which has the second Rime lore book on the desk and a floating rock. Going down to the lower floor after the elevator is rotated brings you to the hallway that leads to the Crystal Viewer, which can view other ages and give a Riven teaser. This elevator makes excellent use of space with the rotation, as each of the 4 destinations either add to the mystique of Rime or serve a purpose of advancing the lore. I prefer this Crystal Viewer over the one later found in Revelation, and enjoyed exploring what Rime had to offer through the elevator. In 18th place is Channelwood Elevator number 2 from the original game. Channelwood is an age in which various devices, mainly elevators, are powered by water that flows through pipes. You can adjust the flow by switching levers found along the ground. The elevators bring you from the ground floor of the swamp to the 2nd and 3rd levels, which are tree houses with wooden walkways spanning them. The elevators themselves are little wooden boxes raised by ropes, which feels right at home with the wooden treehouse theme of the age. The elevator in question, the second one, brings you from the bottom layer of tree houses to the top, where Cirrus and Akinar's rooms are and where you can find the blue and red pages. The reason I put this elevator lower than the other 2 in the age is that in order to use it, you need to find a lever that opens the door to a spiral staircase, allowing you to bring water power to the elevator on the lower floor. The lever is incredibly difficult to find because all of the tree houses look very similar, and it's sometimes hard to tell exactly where you are when you click through the different screens. When you finally find the lever, you're able to go down the staircase, bring the water to the elevator, and go to the 3rd floor of the age. Next is Channelwood Elevator number 1. It looks the exact same as the previous elevator. However, this is the first time in the age that you're able to use the water power to power something on, and it's very exciting when you figure that out and realize that that's how you get to the tree houses you saw during the flyby. The first Myst game is filled with puzzles that feel like they're only there for the sake of being puzzles, but the water flow in Channelwood feels like a tangible cause and effect type chain of events. You bring the water to the elevator, it turns on. When you get it to work, it really feels like you've accomplished something. I've heard an interview with Rand Miller, one of the developers, where he said that Channelwood helped lay the basis of integrated environmental puzzles that would later be found in Riven and other sequels. I also like how stark and solitary the elevator looks when you view it from the top floor. And now to complete the trilogy, Channelwood Elevator number 3. This is the highest one because the steps to get it working are more involved. First, you have to bring water to raise a bridge. Then from the other side of the bridge, you have to extend a pipe. From there, you're able to bring the water to that pipe and get it to power the elevator. The elevator itself looks like the other 2 in the age, and it brings you to a small room that contains the linking book back to Myst Island. Overall, this feels like a satisfying conclusion to the age, and getting it powered on really shows your mastery over the pipe system of Channelwood. Number 15 is the Arena Elevator from Lochion in Myst 5. I played Myst 5 for the first time in making this video, and this is probably one of my favorite puzzles in the game, mainly because it doesn't require you to use the slate too much. Basically, the elevator is a wooden platform, and you're able to set a counterweight that raises it. There's a scale that allows you to see how much you weigh, and then you can set the elevator high enough so that when you teleport to it, the stone lowers to the walkway above. This is the only elevator in the series that you teleport onto, and it's great that they incorporated that into the puzzle itself. I also like that whether or not you're holding the slate factors into the weight that you need to set the counterweight to. And I like that the counterweight setters look like faces. According to the wiki, this arena was built by the Dunny to have the native people of the age fight the Loki, the shark-like creatures found in the oceans. I imagine that this elevator was a sort of pedestal in which the hosts would teleport to and announce the fights. Next is the Peg Puzzle platform from Myst 3. This is the final of the 3 puzzle platforms in Amateria. It's so much higher than the others because you actually solve the puzzle when you're elevated, so you don't need to continually raise and lower the elevator every time you want to try out a solution. The puzzle itself involved 2 rotating wheels that a crystal ball goes onto. Wherever you place a peg, the ball jumps, and you want the ball to jump along the tracks to the other side. You need to figure out where to place the pegs in order to get the ball to go to the final track and complete the puzzle. I have such fond memories of the sound effects of this puzzle, and the views from the top of the elevator are simply stunning. Amateria evokes such a unique feeling that can't be found in any other age in the series, and it's a marvel to be able to see so much of the rocks, tracks, and stormy clouds. Coming in at number 13 is the Amulet Elevator from Spire in Myst 4. This elevator is the culmination of solving all of the puzzles of the age. The elevator ride itself is completely overly dramatic with a theme song and lightning, which feels in line with Sirius's character. The developers clearly liked the elevator so much that you can rewatch the ride as many times as you want using the memory necklace. You can actually see the shaft from when you first arrive, but the cracked button does nothing. In order to get it working after you've done everything else in the age, you need to shoot a person-shaped mineral at the shaft, causing an explosion to clear the debris. At the top, you can view an amulet, which contains a 6-color combination that's important for completing the game. This color code changes every time you play, so riding this elevator is in fact necessary to beating the game. Interestingly, this is the only triangular elevator in the series. Next is another elevator from Spire, the Fog Elevator. I named it as such because it travels through the fog. Two different times in Spire, you go down these long, slide-like caverns, and this elevator is always there to bring you back. I put it higher than the previous elevator because it really contributes to the feeling of the age. The sharp, triangular rocks jutting out of the metallic grate just feels like something Sirius would design. The elevator itself fits right among the columnar rocks, similar to the Hexagonal Elevator in Exile. It goes between 3 floors, and each floor is so unique. The top floor has a sleek green mineral bridge leading to it. The second floor has a bridge of chained floating rocks. The bottom floor is a rocky cavern that's pivotal to completing the age. I really like traveling through the eerie green fog, imagining how Sirius felt being trapped there alone for 20 years. Spire is such a unique age, and traveling through it is unparalleled. Number 11 is the lava platform from Exile in the Voltaic Age. The goal of this puzzle is to reach an upper floor to turn on a fan, which brings steam from the lava to the steam puzzle that I complained about earlier. I actually really like this puzzle. It's simple but effective. There's a cog that raises the platform, and you can switch which side it's on. When it's on the left side, it raises the platform along with the lava, but when it's on the right side, it just raises the platform. The goal is to raise the platform twice. Turn on the fan, bring it back down, and then raise the lava again from the outside so the steam is brought out of the room. There's something satisfying about the way the dial brings the cog to one side when you slide it through, but the cog moves the platform when you bring it around. Next to the elevator is probably the most devastating of Savidro's 3 murals. It shows him and his wife Tamra and his 2 daughters as Cirrus and Achenar burn down his home age of Narayan. They're standing on the gondola that you'll see later in the game, and they're laughing as they look at the chaos that they wrought down below. The fieriness of the mural is complemented by the lava flowing into the chamber, which almost drowns out and muddies the pained artwork. We've made it to the top 10 elevators in the series. Coming in at number 10 is the leather chair in Amateria. After completing the 3 puzzles I discussed earlier, you gain entry to the central building, which is a mess of tracks and hoops. A staircase arrives and leads you up to a chair, in which you can watch one of Savidro's soliloquies, which are always an intense look both into his character and the hurt caused by Cirrus and Achenar.
After class was over, you took your boys away, and you never came back. Cirrus and Achenar did.
Pulling a handle then makes the platform rise, and when it has reached the top, the upper portion of the building inserts metal clasps onto it and causes the platform to float up above, as you've seen numerous times as you solve the puzzles throughout the age. You can never actually descend using this elevator, because at the top you solve a puzzle connecting all of the tracks throughout the age. What happens next is one of my favorite reveals in the entire series, and it was incredibly exciting when I saw it for the first time. I won't spoil it, as it's something that's really worth experiencing for yourself, so go play Myst 3 Exile. Next is the Fireplace Elevator in Tamana in Revelation. This elevator is accessible during the nighttime phase of this location. It's located in Atris and Catherine's bedroom, and the puzzle can be opened by turning on 2 lights found in the room. Inside the elevator you'll find the memory necklace, which serves as a great exposition device throughout the rest of the game. I like that the elevator is a nod to the fireplace in the first game, while also being a very different puzzle. You solve the puzzle by lighting up the glowing squares, and then you're able to descend to the lower floor. After all the information leading up to the question of what's happening with Cirrus and Achenar, it's exciting to go down what feels like a very secret hiding place to find the chamber that houses the red and blue books, the books that you previously saw destroyed 3 games ago. As much as I'm very 50-50 about Myst 4, this is one of my favorite moments in the game. The mystery of what happened to Cirrus and Achenar is so tantalizing, and solving this puzzle to find the prison books is a great experience. In 8th place is the Shipwreck Elevator from Haven in Myst 4. Haven is Achenar's prison age, and this elevator appears to be built by him in order to reach his first shelter, the marooned ship. The whole thing is mechanical. You use a winch to bring up the counterweight box, and a lever brings down the box to lift you up. In order to get the elevator to rise, you need to load a certain amount of cannonballs onto the counterweight box, so that it's heavy enough to lift you. If there are too many cannonballs, the box won't lift, and if there aren't enough, it won't lift you. You also need to load cannonballs into a box that you load onto the elevator, so that at the top you can load them onto a pulley that raises a platform. I like this elevator because of its complex simplicity. It's completely composed of wood and ropes and weights, and it feels so sophisticated, and like it could be constructed by one person in real life. Achenar is often made out to be the more unhinged of the 2 brothers, but in Haven he clearly shows great feats of ingenuity with this elevator and the bridge. The elevator then leads to the shipwreck, in which you can read a journal of his and gain some insight into his first days in Haven. This elevator is a great puzzle and a great display of technical achievement without electricity. It also happens to be the only part of Haven I actually like. Next is the Prison Elevator in Riven. The elevator is located within the hollowed-out trunk of the Great Tree on Prison Island. The whole game has built up to finding Catherine, who has been imprisoned by Gen, and in the late game you're finally able to link to the 5th island and find her after traveling up this elevator. The elevator itself is surrounded by a cage, and you can imagine that Gen would come to visit his daughter-in-law and monologue to her from behind the bars. When you pull the handle and ascend, you're greeted by Catherine, and she tells you to find the code to the age and to trap Gen in the trap book.
The combination to the elevator is somewhere in Gen's office. Be careful.
You get to see her pacing in her cell as well. Honestly, she's got a pretty nice view of the ocean. When you return to age 233 and trap Gen, you can find the sound code in his room. You can then return to the prison island and input the code and make the cage rotate. Catherine can finally escape her prison and reunite with Atris. It's here that the emotional crux of the game is reached, with a great performance from Sheila Gould, when Catherine realizes that Gen is trapped and that her people are free.
You did it. We're all free. You captured Gen.
Your actions here allow the moiety to live safely on Tay. From a broader lore standpoint, there used to be a great tree found on this island, likely to rival that of Tay's. However, due to the innate instability of Riven, the tree cracked and fell apart, while the island itself broke off and drifted so far it could not be seen from the other 4 islands. Gen cut down the rest of the tree in order to make paper for his desperate attempts to make linking books to leave Riven. All that's left of the tree is a massive stump, the tower Gen left to imprison Catherine, and the elevator held within. At number 6 is the Spider Chair Elevator from Spire in Revelation. This is the other brother's crowning achievement in terms of elevator production. It serves as the culmination of all of the puzzles of Spire, in which you use all that you've learned to enter the code that will raise a bridge and then explode the debris to access the Amulet Elevator I talked about previously. Everything about this elevator is so bombastic. The chair itself is dramatic with its metallic spider-like legs and carved backing. When you first sit, you can press the button which lowers the legs, brings down the console, and rotates it so that you're directly opposite Sirius's carved statue of his parents. When you lower yourself to the 2nd level, you descend into a vast cavern, surrounded by a choir of carved crystal statues. Atris and Catherine descend as well, along with you. It feels as if you're facing a tribunal that decided to sentence Sirius for 20 years of solitude, all while his parents judge from above. Sirius hand-carved every single one of the statues found in the room, and while much of the work may have been from manipulation, you can sense the desire to win his parents' approval in the statues. You can even listen to a memory of Sirius's, in which he demonstrates his jealousy of his father's love for his younger sister Yisha.
Not long now, Father. Not long before I show you exactly what a smart little girl can do.
You can lower the chair again, and the choir parts. This is the level in which you're able to manipulate the frequencies of the resonances so that the circles can be freed from their springs. But first you must descend one more level. You leave the console and the rest of the surrounding parts and are lowered onto only precarious wires to find that the rocky spire is nothing but a floating island above a glowing green planet, and you're surrounded by its thick stalactites. There you are able to change the settings of the shapes, of which the corresponding numbers can be found throughout the age. After setting them correctly, you can go back to the 3rd level and set the crystals. Sirius left information about each of the 4 crystals throughout the age, and you can combine all of the gathered data to determine how to set the 3 dials to release each of the 4 crystals. Once all of the crystals are vibrating, another floating rock will form, and you will gain access to the final location of Spire, where you can read another one of Sirius's journals and learn about the extent of his manipulation and his goals. Afterwards, you can use more information that you find to set the correct crystal to launch one of the carved statues at the shaft, clearing the debris. Overall, this elevator is both a gorgeous display of inventiveness and an excellent view into Sirius's character. You can imagine how dangerous it was for him to develop the lowest level of this device, suspending himself below this island to design an elevator supported only by thin wires, all while hanging above a churning green planet far below. The man was already insane, but I can only wonder how much farther being alone in this wretched place for 20 years was, desperately searching for any way out. At number 5 is the Watchtower Elevator from Riven. I may have finagled the list a little to put a Riven elevator at special number 5, but so be it. This elevator and the entire structure surrounding it is a key example of how much detail was put into every facet of Riven. There's a walkway leading to the building, which is dramatic architecturally with its gold trim and carved stone base. There are also large stones jutting out of the ground around it, emphasizing its placement. The door is an asymmetric oval, unlike most doors you may see. The building only exists to host the elevator, which is a golden chair with pattern design surrounded by 2 golden levers and the jawbone of a Wahrk, the whale-like animal found in the waters of Riven. Pulling one lever makes the elevator ascend. As it rises, the ceiling of the building opens and the chair rotates. The top level offers a stunning view of the entire village and lake, which you may already be well acquainted with. Pulling the other lever closes the walkway in the Wahrk gallows, giving you access to the upper floor when you return via the submarine. Gameplay-wise, the entire purpose of this elevator is to pull this lever to close the platform. It's possible that you've already traveled to the gallows by submarine, so you know that closing this platform allows you to travel to the next area. However, there's a far deeper lore to this building and the elevator that really enriches the story. Gen, the main villain of the game, was trapped on Riven by his son Atris. Because he was the writer of the age, he postured himself as the god of the world to its inhabitants. Unfortunately, he ruled with an iron fist. Anyone who dared oppose him, he would tie up on the gallows, pull the lever, and drop them into the water, feeding them to the Wahrks. This grim ceremony is accentuated by the idea of Gen sitting on his golden throne atop his golden tower, looking down on the soon-to-be executed. The fact that he's surrounded by a Wahrk jawbone only adds to the image of him as the commander of the elements, and a sadistic deity. What sets Riven apart from so many other games is that the puzzle and gameplay elements all serve a broader purpose in advancing the story of the world. This simple gameplay impediment of needing to have a platform to continue can be expanded upon to include a brutal characterization of the antagonists of the game, all through architectural design and subtle details in artwork. Coming in at number 4 is the Tower Elevator from Myst. This is the very first elevator in the entire series, and it's so crucial to the progression of the entire game that I had to put it in the top 5. Basically, by turning on various marker switches around the island, you're able to rotate the tower at the top of the mountain. Then you can interact with a painting, which has one of my favorite sound effects in the series, to reveal a hidden tunnel behind the library bookshelf. You proceed down a zigzagging wooden walkway and are greeted with the metal grate door of the elevator. Inside is a label that indicates what floor you're on, either the library or the tower. Below that is a glowing blue button that I've always adored the color of. It's the same blue button that's used as a light switch in the planetarium. As you ascend, the elevator will halt and rotate to match however far you rotated the tower. At the top, you're greeted with a ladder to a view of whatever the tower is facing, and opposite that is a plaque with a clue of how to get to the relevant age. You do this 4 times, once for each of the 4 external ages throughout the game. The elevator always brings you to the tower, which teases where the next linking book will be. After going to your first external age, it's exciting to keep returning to the library and finding the next set of clues, and wondering where you'll be brought next. The first game is filled with such whimsy and wonder that the sequels and remakes chose to move away from in favor of a more grounded, mechanical aesthetic. I even learned that in the 2021 version, the elevator doesn't even rotate, likely so as not to disorient VR players. Overall, this elevator is a classic part of the original game. The process of opening the secret passageway and finding the elevator for the first time is so exciting, and it makes you feel as if you're in on the inner secrets of the island. Then the elevator ride itself is exciting, making you wonder what part of the island you will glimpse, and what vague clue will bring you along to your next adventure. I'm sure that many players back in the 90s spent hours unable to leave the island, pondering the information found on the plaques. It's amazing to know that 30 years on, people are still excited to play this game and discover the information hidden within the famous island. In third place is the Wahrk Idol Elevator from Riven. After Gen was trapped on Riven, he desperately wished to make a working linking book to leave. As stated previously, he cut down the great tree and most other trees on the islands in order to get paper to make the books. However, he found that the books did not work, and worked to create the fire marble domes, which would have sufficient energy to power the books. He put one dome on each island and used their locations as a code to turn them on. The issue was that during his stay on Riven, he asserted a reign of tyranny over the Rivenese people. After the island broke into 5 separate islands, he forced all of the people onto the largest of them, Jungle Island. However, he did not wish for people to access the spinning dome, his gleaming throne, or the maglev gondola that led to his survey room on Plateau Island. He resorted to fear tactics in order to keep them from those locations. As I stated 2 elevators ago, Gen fed dissenters to the Wahrks. For that reason, the Rivenese feared these giant creatures. The people were deeply superstitious, so Gen constructed a giant Wahrk in the jungle to keep the people away. The button to access the elevator hidden within the Wahrk is well hidden in an orb lining the walkway leading to it, and even if a brave civilian of Riven managed to open the entrance, they would have to face walking directly into its mouth to use it. From a gameplay standpoint, there are 2 ways that you may access the elevator, and both are extremely cool. During your first walkthrough of Jungle Island, it's likely that you will discover the Wahrk idol, which is impressive in its own right. Then, if you happen to find the button that opens the idol, you're greeted by the excitement of having no idea what's located up the staircase in the mouth of the beast. Inside, you will find a button that calls the maglev, and a wooden elevator with the ability to travel up to the spinning dome and Gen's Watchtower, or down to the maglev that takes you to Plateau Island. However, the more exciting way to discover this elevator is if you're traveling from Plateau Island to Jungle Island after visiting Gen's survey room. You enter the chamber where the maglev ride ends, which leads to an elevator facing a metal wall. You ride it upward and find a dark wooden room with a lever. Pulling the lever slowly opens the jaws of the beast, and if you previously encountered the idol and thought it was only for decoration, it's a serendipitous moment of realizing where you are. Overall, this elevator is another great addition to the roster of Riven elevators because it has both great lore to it and a delightful experience when using it in-game. It also is just really cool. Number 2 is the Tree Elevator from Myst. This elevator is just such a classic part of the original game. As you aimlessly walk through the iconic island for the first time, you will eventually find yourself venturing into the dense redwood forest. Behind the log cabin, you may find it odd that there's a single tree that stands far above all the other ones, surrounded by a brick pedestal that has metal spikes lining the top. That's odd, you think, and check the box that the game came in. On the cover, you'll see that this one tree does seem to be twice as tall as any other. You can travel into the cabin and play around with the safe, but you don't know the combination. Eventually you'll figure out the marker switch situation, set up the painting, travel up the aforementioned tower elevator, and be excited to see the tower facing directly at the tree. On the other side of the room is a number combination, 724. Wow, the safe in the cabin next to the tree had the exact same number of numbers. So you return and enter the newly found combination to find nothing but a box of matches. Luckily, there's a furnace on the other wall, surrounded by a gas valve on one side and a lovely painting of the mysterious tree on the other. You spend a long time fiddling with the wheel, lighting the furnace, turning the wheel some more, until finally... What the heck is that? The only logical thing to do is go outside. And guess what? The tree is rising. It has a cozy wooden room inside with a light. You step inside and ride it all the way to the top. You have a great view of the grove of trees and the clock tower. From there, you can hold a button down to descend. It will only take you to the ground level, however, and you must leave to get out. Oh no, but it's rising again and you're not inside. Not to worry, just turn the gas off and see what happens. That works like a charm, and now it's descending. Holding down the button when you get back in allows you to descend even more to find out where the tree originally was. And then you end in this room, surrounded by redwood trunks. The soothing piano of Treegate begins, and you see in front of you a large stump with a single book on top, illuminated by the solitary bulb above. If this is the first time you've encountered a linking book since reaching the island, you have no idea that there are other worlds to go to and explore. You pick up the book and see a video of a windmill surrounded by trees. Then you click the video, and all of a sudden you're inside of it, flying around the world that is so distinct from the one that you've spent hours wandering. You have reached Channelwood. Out of the 4 linking locations on Myst Island, this has to be my favorite. The dramatic reveal of the towering tree actually being an elevator that brings you to a subterranean layer is such a unique experience. That, combined with the beauty of the song Treegate and the elegant stump pedestal hosting the book, pays off the build-up really well. The trees also help establish Channelwood before you're even there. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. At the top floor of this list is an elevator so divine in its presentation that it inspired me to make this entire video. I'll just let it speak for itself. I mean, just look at it. The Golden Elevator in Riven has absolutely no need to be anywhere near as elegant or glamorous as it is, and yet Gen just has a knack for going above and beyond in design. This elevator is found on Plateau Island. There's a chance that you've spent a large amount of time playing around with the topographic device on the island, but you also see this door on the other side of the maglev chamber, and desperately want to figure out how to get there. You may overlook the solution because it's so obvious. Turn the maglev around, but instead of taking it to the other island, simply get out of it. You can then walk down the pathway and watch the dramatics of the water bubbling as the chains retrieve the elevator from below. Like many other elevators on Riven, this one has greater lore implications too. The water on Riven actually has many unique properties. Gen found that there are bacteria that affect surface tension, allowing for water to be held in place. You can see this in the submarine ports, and you can see this in the minecart that travels underwater. For this reason, there's a pool of water that the elevator travels through as it rises from the lower level. Traveling down takes you to an underground cavern. You see a woman holding something and scurry away. Then you can enter Gen's survey room, which is one of the coolest rooms in the game, where you can play with the lights and see a Wahrk. Or you can turn left and take the maglev to Jungle Island, where taking the elevator up allows you to open the Wahrk idol's mouth. I would say that bringing up the Golden Elevator to going into the survey room to opening the mouth, this is one of the most awe-inspiring sequences of events in the game. Hopefully you didn't discover the golden elevator from the other side by opening the Wahrk's mouth and traveling by Maglev to Plateau Island. The effects are simply not as exciting as when you enter the pentagonal pool room for the first time. When I was 7, I remember my mom describing this elevator sequence to me, even before I had played any of the games. I have many fond memories of playing Myst and Riven with my parents soon after, and playing the following games in the series on my own in the years to follow. There's a certain magic to each of them in their own ways, and the fact that I've been able to talk about one simple facet of them in such detail proves just how much care was put into them. In writing the script for this video, and continuously changing around the order of the list, I've discovered just how deep the lore of Riven is, and how beautifully crafted each element of the game is in shaping the broader picture. Many people say that Riven looks great for a game made in 1997. I disagree. Riven simply looks amazing, no qualifications. I've not seen many games whose design, puzzles, story, and world are so finely interwoven. Many of the original aspects of the first game were concessions made due to software limitations. The ages were created as a workaround for changing the color palettes of scenes. The linking books and windows in elevators were made because they could only fit a small amount of video on the screen. But somehow everything came together in such a unique and never-before-seen way that the game was a huge success. The creators could have easily cashed in and made a similar game with a central hub world and various worlds to travel through outside, as Myst 3 to 5 would carry on to do. Instead, the creators thought, what if we took all of the vague puzzle pieces we established in Myst and brought them all together in a rich story and deep, well-thought-out world? Their budget was massive, and they were able to make a game that took up 5 discs. In the 4 short years between Myst and Riven, they went from a game that looked like this to a game that looked like this. Going into writing this script, I didn't realize that this video would turn into a love letter for Riven. But I think it's fitting, given that the original creators of the game are releasing a remastered version of it 27 years after the original's release. I'm incredibly excited to play the new version, as the videos they've shown so far have been stunning, and it looks as if they're adding new characters and storylines to further deepen the rich narrative. Considering that the Miller Brothers and Cyan Worlds are behind this project, I have hope that they will keep to the core of what made Riven so special to begin with. Each of these games brought so many worlds and puzzles to explore. This act of exploration resonated throughout the entire game industry, and its impact can still be felt today. I discussed one aspect of these games, devices that go up and down, and sometimes along a rail. But there's so much to love about them and discuss. It's exciting that Cyan is still passionate about making games, with the release of new games like Abduction and Firmament, or the release of remakes of old games like Myst and Riven. It is always such a joy to navigate their worlds. I eagerly await the release of the new Riven on June 24th, especially so I can ride those elevators. Okay, bye!